The torn patch smelled like motor oil and leather and something else Harlow couldn't name. Something that made her throat tight and her eyes burn. She pressed it to her face in the darkness of her bedroom, inhaling deeply, trying to pull her father back from wherever the dead went. 6 months. Half a year since the phone call. Since the officers at the door. Since her mother's scream that seemed to crack the walls of their Phoenix apartment. Harlow was 8 years old and she was learning that grief had a smell. Gasoline and old leather, cologne her dad used to wear, called something tough like diesel, or iron or steel. The kind of name that matched the patches sewn onto the vest he wore everywhere, the vest that said he belonged to something bigger than just their family. The vest that now hung in her mother's closet like a ghost. Harlow had stolen the patch 3 weeks ago. Just one small piece torn from the back panel where her mother wouldn't notice right away. The patch showed an eagle with spread wings rendered in black thread on worn leather, with the words Steel Brotherhood MC curved above it in Gothic letters. Arizona rocker underneath. Her father's club, her father's family, her father's whole world it seemed, sometimes even though he always said she and her mom came first. But Steel Brotherhood came second, very close second. And now Harlow clutched that second-place piece of her father in the dark, crying as quietly as she could, because the walls were thin and her mother was in the next room, and Harlow didn't want to make her mother hurt more than she already did. She was learning to grieve alone, learning to be small and silent, learning to swallow her memories like bitter medicine she wasn't supposed to ask for. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner fighting the Arizona heat. Even at night in early October, Phoenix didn't fully cool down. The heat seeped into everything, into the walls, into Harlow's skin, into the leather patch that was growing soft from her constant handling, the edges fraying from her 8-year-old fingers picking at the threads. Harlow rolled over in bed and stared at the photograph on her nightstand. Her father, Knox Brennan, standing beside his Road King motorcycle, all 6 feet and 2 inches of him, broad-shouldered and muscular from years of mechanic work and long-distance riding. His hair was dark brown, cut military short, even though he'd never served. His arms were covered in tattoos, black ink, that told stories she'd never gotten to hear all of. An eagle on his right forearm that matched the patch. Coordinates on his left wrist that marked the location of the Steel Brotherhood clubhouse. Words in script along his ribs that she'd seen once when he was working shirtless in the garage. Freedom is a full tank and an open road. In the photo, he was smiling. The real smile, not the tough guy smirk he wore for his club brothers. The smile he saved for her and her mother. The smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made him look younger than his 32 years. Knox Iron Brennan. They'd called him Iron because he was strong, because he could work on bikes for 12 hours straight without complaining, because he once drove 10 stakes into hard-pan desert dirt with 2 hits of a hammer when everyone else needed 10. Iron, strong, unbreakable. Except he had broken, on Route 17 heading north toward Flagstaff. A drunk driver named Wade Dalton crossing the center line. Knox on his motorcycle, no chance to react. The impact killed him instantly, the officer said. He didn't suffer, they said, as if that was supposed to make it hurt less. Harlow pressed the patch harder against her face and let herself cry. The next morning came too soon. Friday, school day. Harlow dragged herself out of bed and pulled on jeans and a black t-shirt with a faded Batman logo, the same outfit she'd worn twice this week already. Her mother was already gone, working the early shift at the diner on Indian School Road, trying to make enough in tips to cover rent and food and all the bills that kept coming, even though the person who used to pay them was dead. Harlow poured herself cereal and ate it, standing at the counter, staring at the calendar on the refrigerator. Her mother had stopped marking the days. The calendar still showed March frozen on the month her father died. It was October now, 7 months of empty squares. She tucked the stolen patch into her front pocket before leaving for school. She always carried it now, a secret piece of her father that no one could tell her to forget. Desert Vista Elementary sat squat and beige under the Arizona sun, the kind of building designed to blend into the landscape and survive the heat. Harlow walked the 8 blocks from their apartment, head down backpack, heavy with books she couldn't focus on reading. Third period was art class. Mrs. Henderson was young and enthusiastic and always trying to make projects meaningful, always trying to get the kids to express themselves. Today, Mrs. Henderson announced, with entirely too much cheer, we're going to make Father's Point kids. I know it's October, but we'll save them until June. Think about what makes your dad special. Think about what you want to tell him. The classroom buzzed with activity, kids reaching for construction paper and markers, kids laughing, kids complaining that their dads were boring or embarrassing or strict. Harlow sat frozen at her desk. Mrs. Henderson noticed. She always noticed. Harlow, don't you want to make a cardium? The room went quiet. That particular silence that happens when everyone knows something to eat and they're all waiting to see what happens next. Harlow's best friend, Mackenzie Rodriguez, from two desks over, whispered, Mrs. Henderson, Harlow's dad. Oh, Mrs. Henderson's face changed. Oh, Harlow, I'm so sorry. I forgot. You don't have to. But Harlow was already standing, already walking to the supply table, already picking up a piece of black construction paper because that was the only color that made sense. She sat back down and drew in silence while the other kids made cards with hearts and world's best dad and stick figures playing catch. Harlow drew a motorcycle, just the outline and silver marker, wheels perfectly round, handlebars exact, the profile of a road king, her father's bike, the one that got mangled in the crash, the one they'd never let her see after. She drew it carefully, precisely the way her father had taught her to pay attention to details. That's really good, Mackenzie said quietly. My dad was a biker, Harlow said. Her voice came out flat. He wore a leather vest with patches. He was in a motorcycle club. He died. The words just sat there in the air, true and terrible. Mrs. Henderson came over, looked at the drawing, looked at Harlow's face. Would you like to go to see the counselor? No. Harlow, it's okay to feel. I said no. Harlow shoved the drawing into her backpack and put her head down on the desk for the rest of class. Mrs. Henderson didn't push. None of the teachers pushed anymore. They all handled her like something breakable, something they didn't quite know how to fix. At lunch, Harlow sat alone. Not because the other kids were mean. They weren't. They were just uncomfortable. Death made 8-year-olds nervous. They didn't know what to say. So they said nothing. They orbited around her like she was a black hole that might suck them in if they got too close. Mackenzie brought her tray over anyway, loyal. You want to come over after school? My mom said you could. Can't. My mom's working late again. You could still come. My mom doesn't mind. I'm fine by myself. Mackenzie poked at her pizza. Do you ever talk about him? Your dad? My mom doesn't like it when I talk about him. Oh. She says it makes her too sad. She says I need to move on. That's stupid. How are you supposed to move on? He's your dad. Harlow felt something crack open in her chest. Mackenzie's words felt like permission for something. Everyone says that. Move on. Be strong. Don't cry. It's like they want to pretend he never existed. That's really stupid, Mackenzie said with an 8-year-old's absolute certainty. Yeah, Harlow whispered. It is. After school, Harlow walked home alone and let herself into the empty apartment. Her mother wouldn't be back until after 7. The silence was heavy, the kind of silence that made every small sound too loud. The refrigerator humming, the air conditioner clicking on, her own footsteps on the cheap laminate floor. She dropped her backpack by the door and stood in the middle of the living room, looking at all the empty spaces where her father used to be. The corner where his motorcycle boots used to sit, the hook by the door where he used to hang his keys, the spot on the couch where he used to sit and watch TV, with her curled up against his side, his arm around her shoulders, his vest smelling of the open road. All of it gone. Her mother had erased him like he was a mistake. Harlow walked to her mother's bedroom. The door was closed. It was always closed now. She wasn't supposed to go in, but she did anyway. She pushed the door open and stepped into the dim room, curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. The closet door stood half open. Harlow could see it from where she stood. The leather vest hanging in the back behind her mother's work uniforms and old coats. Black leather with patches. Steel brotherhood colors. Her father's armor. His identity. The thing that said who he was and who he rode with and what he stood for. Harlow had taken the patch from the back panel. Small theft, secret rebellion. But now she wanted more. She wanted the whole story. She wanted to know why her father loved that vest so much, why he wore it everywhere, why he was so proud of those patches. She walked to the closet and reached up, pulling the vest down from its hanger. It was heavy, heavier than she expected. Adult-sized, man-sized. The leather was thick and worn soft with age, creased at the shoulders, faded at the collar. The patches were sewn on with careful stitches, permanent and proud. Main patch on the back, Steel Brotherhood MC, Arizona. The eagle with spread wings. Smaller patches scattered across the front and sides. Road captain designation. Rally pins from Sturgis and Daytona. A flag. Coordinates. Inside jokes in the form of tiny skulls and wrenches and flames. Harlow pressed her face into the leather and inhaled. Still there. Still him. Engine grease and cologne in the desert wind. She carried the vest back to her room, heart pounding like she was committing a crime. Maybe she was, but she didn't care. She needed this. She needed him. She laid the vest out on her bed and examined every inch of it. Every patch, every pin, every stain and scratch and worn spot. Reading it like a book, trying to understand the language of leather and ink, the code of motorcycle clubs, the world her father had loved as much as he'd loved her. Inside the vest in the inner pocket, she found something. A small notebook. Leather-bound, worn, the kind that fit in a pocket. Harlow pulled it out with trembling fingers. Her father's handwriting on the first page dated 2 years ago. Road Journal, Knox Brennan, Steel Brotherhood MC Arizona. She flipped through it. Entries about rides, notes about bike maintenance, sketches of routes and maps, and scattered throughout personal thoughts. Things her father had written down when he was alone on the road thinking. Harlow turned pages carefully, reverently, until she found an entry that made her stop breathing. The date was 2 months before he died. The entry read, Harlow's 7 now, getting bigger every day, smart as hell, tough too. She doesn't cry when she falls off her bike, just gets back on. She's got iron in her blood, whether she knows it or not. Been thinking about the club rules, the traditions, how it's always been fathers and sons, brothers, men carrying on the legacy. But what about daughters? What about girls like Harlow, who've got more heart and guts than half the men I know? Talked to Bear about it last night after church. He laughed at first. Thought I was joking, but I wasn't. I asked him, why can't my daughter be in this club someday if she wants to? Why can't I teach her about bikes and brotherhood? And the code we live by. What part of our values says girls aren't worthy? Bear didn't have an answer. Just tradition, he said. Just how it's always been. But tradition isn't the same as truth. And I think it's bullshit that Harlow can't choose this life if she wants it. She's my daughter. She's Iron's kid. And if she grows up wanting to ride, wanting to wear these patches, wanting to be part of this brotherhood, then I'm going to fight like hell to change the rules so she can. She deserves that choice. Every kid should get to choose their own path. Not forced into it, not forbidden from it, just the freedom to choose. I'm going to talk to Raven next week. Start the conversation. Plant the seed. It'll take time to change minds. But I've got time. Harlow's only 7. By the time she's old enough to prospect, maybe the club will be ready for her. My daughter, my pride. First of many, I hope. She could be the one who breaks the mold, who proves that brotherhood isn't about what's between your legs, it's about what's in your heart. I can't wait to teach her everything I know. Harlow read the entry 3 times, then 4, then 5. Her father had fought for her, had wanted her to be part of his world, had seen her as strong enough, worthy enough, tough enough to carry the legacy. And then he died before he could finish the fight. Harlow sat on her bed with the journal clutched in both hands and cried harder than she'd cried since the funeral. Not sad tears, angry tears, grateful tears, confused tears, all of them mixed together into something that felt too big for her 8-year-old body to contain. Her father had believed in her, had wanted a future for her that no one else had even imagined. And now he was gone and the fight was over before it started, and Harlow was alone with a stolen patch and a secret journal, in a dream her father never got to see through. She cried until she had no tears left, until her head hurt and her eyes burned and her chest felt hollow. And then she made a decision. If her father had fought for her, then she wouldn't let that fight die with him. She would carry it forward. She would make sure someone knew. She would find her father's brothers, and she would show them this journal, and she would prove that Knox Iron Brennan's daughter was exactly who he said she was. Strong, tough, worthy. The next afternoon, Saturday, Harlow's mother told her to pack a bag. We're going to visit Aunt Linda in Flagstaff for the weekend. I need to get out of this city. I can't breathe here anymore. Harlow packed in silence, jeans, t-shirts, her toothbrush, and hidden at the bottom of her bag, wrapped in a t-shirt, the stolen patch, and her father's journal. They left Phoenix at 2 in the afternoon. Harlow's mother driving her old Honda Civic north on I-17, windows down, because the air conditioning had broken and they couldn't afford to fix it. The highway cut through the desert, through rocky hills and scrub brush, through landscape that was beautiful in its harshness. Harlow watched the telephone poles blur past and thought about her father on this same road, riding his motorcycle, free, the wind in his face, the sun on his back, alive. This was the road that killed him. Somewhere along this stretch of asphalt, Wade Dalton had crossed the center line. Somewhere along here, her father had died. Harlow pressed her hand against the stolen patch in her pocket and stared out the window looking for ghosts. They stopped for gas just outside Flagstaff, a Chevron station at the junction where Route 89 met the interstate, the kind of place that existed for travelers heading to the Grand Canyon or Sedona. Nothing special. Just pumps and a convenience store and tired people stretching their legs. Harlow's mother pulled up to pump 7 and got out with a sigh. I'm going to get coffee. You need anything? No. You can come inside if you want. I'm fine here. Her mother looked at her for a long moment. Harlow could see the guilt in her eyes, the exhaustion, the desperate need to escape her own life for a few hours. Okay, I'll be right back. Harlow watched her mother walk into the convenience store, shoulders slumped, looking older than 34. The weight of being a widow with an 8-year-old daughter and bills she couldn't pay was crushing her. Harlow could see it happening. Watch her mother shrinking, disappearing. And that's when Harlow saw him, a man at pump 3, massive, 6'3", at least broad-shouldered, muscular, with a salt and pepper beard and a weathered face. He was kneeling beside a black Road King motorcycle doing something with the engine, his hands dark with grease. And he was wearing a vest, black leather, patches. Harlow's heart stopped. She stared. The man's vest looked almost identical to her father's. Same style, same placement of patches. Different club name on the back, but the same eagle, the same Arizona rocker, the same road-worn leather that said this was a man who lived on his bike. Harlow didn't think. She just moved. Got out of the car, walked across the gas station lot, got closer, closer, until she was standing 6 feet away from this stranger, staring at his vest like it was a holy relic. The man must have sensed her presence because he looked up from his bike. His eyes were blue sharp, assessing. He looked at Harlow the way adults look at kids who are standing too close to strangers. Cautious, slightly concerned. You need something, kid. Harlow's voice came out small. Excuse me, mister. The man stood up slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. He was huge up close, intimidating. The kind of man who could break someone in half without trying. But Harlow wasn't scared. She was desperate. My dad had patches like yours, she said. The words tumbled out. On his jacket, the leather vest, like the one you're wearing. He was in a motorcycle club. The man's expression shifted, past tense. He'd heard it. Harlow nodded, swallowed hard. He died 6 months ago. Car accident on Route 17, drunk driver. People in his club called him Iron because he was really strong. The man went very still. Iron, Knox, Brennan, Steel, Brotherhood, Phoenix chapter. Harlow's eyes went wide. Her heart started hammering. You knew him, you knew my dad. The man knelt down, putting himself at Harlow's eye level. His voice went gentle. Yeah, kid, I knew him. Your dad was a good man, a real good brother. What's your name? Harlow Brennan. I'm Flint Mathis. I'm road captain for Steel, Brotherhood Flagstaff chapter. Your dad and I rode together a bunch of times before he relocated to Phoenix. Harlow's hand went to her pocket, to the patch. She pulled it out with trembling fingers. I took this from his vest after he died. Mom put his vest away and said I couldn't have it until I was older. But I wanted something of his. So I took this patch. I carry it everywhere. She held it out, the small square of leather with the eagle, worn, frayed at the edges from her constant handling. Flint took it carefully like it was fragile, like it mattered. He turned it over in his big scarred hands and his jaw clenched. This is Iron's patch, from his back panel. I know I stole it, Harlow said quickly, but I had to. Mom won't talk about him. She says it makes her too sad. My grandparents say I need to move on. But I don't want to move on. I don't want to forget him. Her voice broke. The words kept coming faster now, desperate. Everyone wants me to pretend he never existed, but he did exist. He was my dad, and he was the best dad, and nobody understands. Nobody lets me remember him. Nobody lets me grieve. They all just want me to be okay, but I'm not okay. I miss him so much, and I'm not allowed to say it. The tears came. Harlow couldn't stop them. She was crying in front of a stranger at a gas station, breaking down completely, all the grief she'd been swallowing for 6 months pouring out in one massive flood. Flint did something unexpected. He pulled Harlow into a hug. This huge biker in a leather vest, this stranger just wrapped his arms around her and let her cry into his chest, let her sob into his vest the way she used to sob into her father's, held her while she shook apart. Your dad existed, Flint said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. And he was a hell of a good man. And you don't have to forget him, Harlow. You don't have to move on. You get to miss him for as long as you need to. Anyone who tells you different doesn't understand what it means to lose someone you love. Harlow clung to Flint's vest like she was drowning, and he was the only thing keeping her afloat. She cried for her father, for the 6 months of silence, for the loneliness, for being 8 years old and carrying grief that felt too heavy for her small shoulders. After a few minutes, she pulled back, wiping her face with her sleeve. Embarrassed now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry on you. Don't apologize. You've got every right to cry. You lost your dad. That's the hardest thing in the world. Flint paused, looking at the patch in his hand. Your dad would be real proud of you, you know. Proud that you remember him. Proud that you keep this patch close. That's exactly what he'd want. Really, Guam? Really. And I'll tell you something else. Your dad's brothers, his club, we remember him too. We honor him. And that means we honor you. Because you're his daughter. You're part of his legacy. Harlow looked up at Flint with desperate hope. Can you tell me about him? About what he was like with his club? Mom won't talk about it, and I want to know everything. Flint glanced toward the convenience store where he could see a woman inside at the coffee counter. Dark hair, mid-30s, looking exhausted in that bone-deep way that came from grief and single parenthood. That had to be Harlow's mother. Flint made a decision in that moment, a decision that would change everything. Harlow, I'm going to talk to your mom, and if she's okay with it, I want to call some of my club brothers. Some of them knew your dad real well, better than I did, and I think they'd want to meet you. Would that be okay? Harlow's face transformed. Yes, yes, please. I want to meet Dad's friends. I want to hear their stories. I want to know everything. Flint stood and approached the convenience store. The woman Nora Brennan was paying for coffee when she looked up and saw a large biker in a leather vest standing near her daughter. Her face went pale, then hard. She rushed outside. Harlow, get away from him. Nora called her, her voice sharp with protective fear. Mom, no, this is Flint. He knew Dad. He was in Dad's club. I don't care who he is. Come here. Now. Flint raised both hands in a peaceful gesture, staying back, giving space. Ma'am, I'm Flint Mathis Steele Brotherhood MC Flagstaff. Chapter. I rode with your husband Knox. I was at his funeral 6 months ago. Your daughter saw my vest and came over to talk. She showed me Iron's patch. Nora's face crumpled. When she spoke, her voice shook. That patch. She took that patch off Knox's vest. I've been looking for it for weeks. Harlow, you can't just take his things. It hurts too much. Mrs. Brennan, Flint said gently, can we talk? Please, Nora looked at him, at her daughter. At the patch Flint still held carefully in his hand. Some of the hardness left her face. She just looked tired, sad, overwhelmed. What do you want? Your daughter is grieving. She's carrying her father's memory, and nobody's letting her talk about it. She needs her dad's brothers. She needs people who knew Knox, who can tell her stories, who can help her understand that her father mattered to more people than just family. Steel Brotherhood would like to do that for her if you'll let us. Nora's eyes filled with tears. I can't. I can't keep reliving it. Every time Harlow talks about Knox, I have to relive losing him. I have to see that motorcycle lying on its side and the police at my door, and I can't breathe. I know I'm handling this wrong. I know Harlow needs to grieve, but I don't know how to help her without drowning in my own grief. You don't have to do it alone, Flint said quietly. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Steel Brotherhood takes care of our fallen brothers' families. Always. We should have been there for you and Harlow these past 6 months. I'm ashamed we weren't. We didn't know Knox had a daughter. We didn't know you needed us, but we know now, and we want to help, if you'll let us. Nora looked at Harlow, who was watching with desperate hope in her eyes. What are you proposing? Nora asked. I want to call my club brothers who knew Knox. I want them to meet Harlow. I want to tell her stories about her dad. And I want to make sure you both know that Knox's memory is honored, that his daughter is part of our family, that you're not alone in this. Flint paused. The Steel Brotherhood Clubhouse is 20 minutes from here. You could follow me there. There's photos of Knox on the walls, brothers who can tell stories, a community that wants to meet Iron's daughter. Nora hesitated. Fear and hope warred on her face. Finally, she said, not here. Not at a gas station. If we're doing this, we do it right. Flint pulled out his phone. How about the clubhouse? You follow me there. If you're uncomfortable at any point, you leave. No pressure, no questions. Nora looked at her daughter again. Harlow was practically vibrating with hope. One meeting, Nora said. For Harlow, if I see anything wrong, we leave and you never contact us again. Yes, ma'am, that's fair. Flint made calls while Nora finished filling her gas tank. Harlow listened, barely breathing, as Flint talked to people with road names like Raven and Wrench and Hawk, telling them Iron's daughter was coming to the clubhouse, telling them to get there in 30 minutes. Everyone who knew Knox Brennan, everyone who wanted to honor a fallen brother's kid. Iron's kid is 8 years old, Flint said into the phone. Been grieving alone for 6 months because family won't let her talk about her dad. She needs us, brother. She needs to know her father was loved. By the time Flint hung up, 18 brothers had committed to being at the clubhouse within the hour. They drove in convoy. Flint on his Road King leading the way. Nora following in her Honda Civic with Harlow in the passenger seat. 20 minutes through Flagstaff to the outskirts where the clubhouse sat, a converted garage with bikes lined up outside and the Steel Brotherhood flag flying. Harlow pressed her face to the window, staring at the motorcycles, counting them. 14 already, more arriving as they pulled into the lot. Men on bikes, big men in leather vests, rough-looking men with tattoos and scars and beards. Men who dropped everything when they heard Iron's daughter needed them. Nora parked and turned off the engine. She sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. Harlow, if this feels wrong, if you're scared, we can leave. I'm not scared, Mom. These are bikers. They live outside society's rules. They're not like normal people. Dad was a biker. He lived outside normal rules, and he was the best person I ever knew. Nora's breath hitched. She looked at her daughter and seemed to really see her for the first time in 6 months. You're just like him, stubborn, fearless, too brave for your own good. Is that bad? No, baby, it's not bad. Nora wiped her eyes. Okay, let's meet your dad's family. They got out of the car. Harlow clutched the patch in her hand. Flint was waiting by the clubhouse door. As they approached, the door opened and bikers started filing out, one by one, until 18 men stood in a loose semicircle watching Harlow and her mother approach. Rough men, hard men, men with prison tattoos and broken noses and hands scarred from fights and mechanical work. And every single one of them stood in respectful silence as Iron's daughter walked toward them. Then one man stepped forward, massive, even bigger than Flint, a gray streak through his dark beard, wearing a VP patch on his vest. His eyes locked on Harlow and something in his face broke. He dropped to his knees. This huge biker, this vice president, collapsed onto the dirt parking lot and started crying. Jesus Christ, the man choked out. She looks exactly like him. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. She's got Iron's face. Harlow stood frozen. She'd never seen a grown man cry before. Not like this. Not like his heart was breaking. Flint put a hand on the man's shoulder. Bear, brother, breathe. The man called Bear looked up at Nora with tears streaming into his beard. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us Iron had a daughter? We would have been there. We should have been there. Nora's voice was small. I didn't know. Knox never told me you'd care about us after he was gone. He never said the club would want to help. Bear's face contorted with pain. Ma'am, we're brothers. We take care of each other's families. Always. We failed you, and I'm so damn sorry. He turned to Harlow, looked at her properly, saw the patch she was clutching in her hand. Is that Iron's patch from his vest? Harlow nodded, couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Bear held out one huge hand. Can I see it? Harlow placed the patch in his palm. Bear looked at it, and fresh tears fell. Knox wore this patch for 8 years. I was there when he earned his colors. I was there when he sewed this eagle on his vest. And now his daughter's been carrying it alone for 6 months while we didn't even know she existed. Bear looked at the assembled brothers. His voice went hard, authoritative. This is Iron's daughter, Harlow Brennan, and as of right now, she's Steel Brotherhood family. Anyone got a problem with that can turn in their colors and walk. No one moved, no one spoke. 18 bikers stood in solemn agreement. Bear turned back to Harlow. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. Your dad talked about you. Did you know that 2 weeks before he died, he told me something? He said, Bear, my daughter's got more heart than most men I know. She's tough. She doesn't cry when she falls. She just gets back up. Harlow's eyes went wide. He said that, yeah, kid, he did. And he said something else. He said you should have the choice. The choice to be part of this world if you wanted it. The choice to ride. The choice to wear these patches someday if that's what you chose. Bear pulled something from his pocket, a folded piece of paper, worn, like he'd been carrying it for a while. He unfolded it and Harlow recognized her father's handwriting. A letter, addressed to Bear. Your dad gave me this a month before he died, Bear said. He made me promise not to read it unless something happened to him. I read it the day after his funeral. Bear's voice cracked, but he pushed on. It says, Bear, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Take care of my girls. Take care of Nora and Harlow. Make sure they know they're Steel Brotherhood family. Make sure my daughter knows she can choose her own path. Not forced into the club, not forbidden from it. Her choice. Always her choice. And if she ever wants to learn about bikes, about riding, about what it means to be part of a brotherhood, you teach her. You finish what I started, because my daughter deserves that chance. She deserves to know her father fought for her right to choose. Promise me, brother. Promise me you'll be there for her. Bear folded the letter carefully, looked at Harlow with red-rimmed eyes. I failed that promise for 6 months, but I'm not failing it anymore. Your dad wanted you to have choices, Harlow, and Steel Brotherhood is going to make sure you get them. Harlow couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Her father had written about her, had fought for her, had believed she deserved the same choices sons got. And now his brothers were standing here, 18 men who dropped everything to honor that fight. Bear stood up and held out his hand, not to shake, just to offer connection. Your dad was my best friend for 12 years. I loved him like blood, and I'm going to love his daughter the same way, if you'll let me. Harlow took Bear's hand. Her small fingers disappeared in his massive palm, and for the first time in 6 months, she didn't feel alone. The clubhouse was a converted garage walls lined with photographs and club banners. Concrete floors, worn furniture, the smell of engine grease and old leather. A workspace that had become a sanctuary. Harlow stepped inside and her eyes immediately found the photographs. Dozens of them covering every wall. And there among the faces of bikers past and present was her father. Knox Iron Brennan, young in some photos, laughing, working on a bike, standing with Bear both grinning at the camera. Alive. Harlow walked toward the wall like she was being pulled by invisible strings. She reached up and touched one photo through the dusty glass. Her father at 25 standing beside his Road King, his smile wide and genuine. That was taken the day he earned his colors, Bear said quietly from behind her. First day he officially became Steel Brotherhood. He was so damn proud. The 18 bikers had followed them inside. They settled into chairs and couches, creating a circle. Nora sat on the edge of a couch, ready to bolt. Harlow sat beside her, clutching the patch Bear had handed back. Flint brought water. Raven, the chapter president, sat forward, gray-haired, lean, weathered from decades on motorcycles. Mrs. Brennan, Harlow, on behalf of Steel Brotherhood MC, I want to apologize. We should have found you after Iron's funeral. Should have made sure you knew the club would be here for you. We failed in that duty, and there's no excuse for it. Nora's voice was tight. Knox never told me much about the club. He kept that part of his life separate. I didn't know if you'd even want to hear from us. Ma'am, when a brother falls, his family becomes our family. That's not negotiable. That's code. Raven's eyes moved to Harlow. Your father was a good man and a solid brother. He rode with honor, lived by the code, and any child of his deserves to know that. The stories came then, each brother sharing a memory. Wrench, shaved head, mechanic's hands. Iron could fix anything. Rebuilt an engine with duct tape and stubbornness. Saved my bike from the junkyard twice. Hawk, gray beard. Iron earned his road name at Sturgis, setting up camp, everyone struggling to drive tent stakes into hardpan. Took us 10-15 hits with a sledgehammer. Iron walked up, grabbed the hammer, drove stakes in 2 hits, just 2. We called him Iron that night, and it stuck. More stories. Iron never leaving a brother stranded, his deep laugh that filled rooms. How he rode serious, never drunk, never reckless, because he had a daughter at home who needed her dad to come back safe. That last one hit Harlow like a physical blow. Her father had talked about her, had made it clear she mattered more than the road, more than freedom, more than anything. Bear stood, walked to a back room, returned carrying a cardboard box, dusty, taped shut with yellowed packing tape. He set it on the coffee table in front of Harlow. His hand shook. Your dad left this here, 2 months before he died. Told me to keep it safe. Said if anything ever happened to him, I was supposed to give it to you when the time was right. The box had her father's handwriting on the side. For Harlow, when she's ready. Bear cut the tape, opened the flaps, reached inside. What he pulled out made the entire room go silent. A vest, black leather, small, youth-sized, but modified. Shoulders narrower, armholes smaller, torso tapered at the waist, customized to fit a girl's body as she grew. Bear held it up. Even in dim light, Harlow could see the patches sewn on. Professional stitching. Permanent. The main back patch showed Steel Brotherhood's eagle, smaller than full size. Not full colors, but a youth patch. A promise. A future. On the front over the heart, Iron's legacy. Bear's voice was rough. Your dad had this custom made. Leather worker in Tucson. Paid extra to get the sizing right. Sewn the patches himself. He was going to give this to you on your 12th birthday. Was going to start teaching you about bikes, about the code, about what it means to choose this life. He held the vest out. He died before he could give it to you, but he made it for you because he believed you deserved this choice. Harlow stood on shaking legs, reached out, touched the leather, softer than her father's vest, newer, but the same weight, the same promise. She took it and held it to her small frame. Even at 8, even size for a 12-year-old, she could tell it would fit someday. Would grow with her, would mark her as belonging to something bigger than herself. The vest smelled new, no engine grease or cologne yet, no history, just potential. Try it on, Bear said gently. Harlow looked at her mother. Nora's face was wet with tears, but she nodded. Permission. Harlow shrugged into the vest, big on her 8-year-old frame, hanging past her waist shoulders too wide. But someday it would fit. Someday she'd grow into it. Someday this leather would mold to her body the way her father's vest had molded to his. She looked down at the patches, at Iron's legacy over her heart, at the Steel Brotherhood eagle on her back, smaller but no less important. She was wearing her father's dream for her, his belief in her, his fight for her right to choose. And then reality crashed back in. Hold on. One of the brothers stood, younger guy, maybe 30, lean with prison tattoos on his forearms and a gunner patch on his vest. His face twisted with confusion and anger. What the hell is this? We're giving Iron's daughter club colors, Bear turned slowly. His voice went cold. Not full colors, a youth vest. Iron had it made for her. For what girls don't prospect. Girls don't earn patches. This is a brotherhood, not a sisterhood. The room temperature dropped. Several brothers shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded in agreement with Gunnar. Raven stood. Gunnar, sit down. No, I'm saying what everyone's thinking. This is tradition we're talking about. 40 years of steel brotherhood has been men only. Fathers and sons. Brothers. That's the code. That's how it works. Iron wanted his daughter to have the choice, Bear said. His voice was dangerous now. The kind of quiet that comes before violence. Iron's dead. And with respect to our fallen brother, he doesn't get a vote on changing club rules that have existed since before he was born. Another brother stood, older, maybe 50. I rode with Iron's father back in the 80s. Good man. He never would have suggested putting a girl in a vest. This goes against everything Steel Brotherhood stands for. Flint stepped forward, placing himself between Gunnar and Harlow. Everything we stand for loyalty, for brotherhood, for taking care of our own. Harlow is Iron's daughter. She's ours to protect, to honor, to support. That's the code. The code is brothers, Gunnar shot back. Not sisters, not daughters. You want to help the kid, fine, send money, show up for school events, but don't put her in a vest and pretend she's one of us. She's not. She can't be. Harlow felt like she'd been slapped. The vest suddenly felt heavy, wrong, a costume she had no right to wear. She started to take it off, but Bear's hand on her shoulder stopped her. Keep it on, he said quietly. You've got every right. Raven's voice cut through the tension. We're going to take a vote, right now. The question is simple. Do we honor Iron's wishes and accept his daughter Harlow as Steel Brotherhood family with the right to learn about the club, about motorcycles, and to prospect when she's of age if she so chooses? This is insane, Gunnar said. We can't just change tradition because one guy wanted special treatment for his kid. One guy, Bear's voice was a growl, that one guy was Iron, our brother who died on that highway, who left behind a daughter who's been grieving alone for 6 months. And you want to tell me we're going to dishonor his memory by saying his wishes don't matter? His wishes aren't realistic. Girls don't belong in motorcycle clubs. Why not? The question came from the oldest brother in the room, a man in his 70s with a white beard and an elder patch on his vest. He'd been quiet until now, just watching. When he spoke, everyone listened. I'm asking seriously, why can't a girl a prospect if she's tough enough, if she's willing to put in the work, and if she lives by the code, Gunnar sputtered. Because that's just how it is. Tradition. Tradition isn't the same as truth, the elder said. I've been in this club for 43 years. I've seen a lot of traditions come and go. Some of them were good. Some of them were just habits we kept because we were too scared to change. So I'm asking you, Gunnar, what part of the code says daughters aren't worthy? Gunnar had no answer. He just stood there, jaw clenched, fist balled. Raven spoke again. We vote, right now, all in favor of accepting Harlow Brennan as Steel Brotherhood family with the rights Iron requested. Raise your hand. 14 hands went up. Bear, Flint, Raven, the Elder, Hawk, Wrench, most of the assembled brothers. Opposed 4 hands, Gunnar and 3 others. Raven nodded. Motion carries. Harlow Brennan is officially Steel Brotherhood family. She has the right to be here, to learn, to choose her own path. Anyone who can't support that decision can turn in their colors right now. Gunnar stared at Raven, then at Harlow in her too big vest with her father's legacy sewn over her heart. For a moment it looked like he might actually surrender his patches, walk out, leave the club over this. But he didn't. He just shook his head in disgust and walked out the door, slamming it behind him. The 3 other dissenters followed. The remaining 14 brothers sat in heavy silence. Bear knelt in front of Harlow. Kid, I'm sorry you had to see that. Some men don't change easy. Don't let it take away from what your dad wanted for you. But Harlow's mind was spinning. 4 men had voted against her. 4 men thought she didn't belong. And Gunnar's words kept echoing. Girls don't belong in motorcycle clubs. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe her father's dream was impossible. A woman's voice cut through Harlow's spiral. They said the same thing about me. Everyone turned. A woman stood in the doorway that led to the back rooms. Mid-50s, blonde hair going gray, leather jacket, jeans, boots. She had the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades on the road. Bear stood. Beth, didn't know you were here. Came in through the back. Heard the whole thing. Beth walked into the room with the confident stride of someone who belonged. She looked at Harlow. I'm Beth, Bear's wife. And 30 years ago, I was exactly where you are, standing in a clubhouse wearing a vest too big for me while men argued about whether I belonged. Harlow stared. You were in Steel Brotherhood. No, different club. My father was a member of the Iron Riders MC Northern California chapter. He died when I was 12. His club brothers taught me to ride, taught me to wrench. When I turned 18, I prospected, earned my patches. Beth's voice took on an edge. But not everyone was happy about it. Some of the older members said the same things Gunnar just said. Tradition, brotherhood, girls don't belong, made my prospect year hell. Made me work twice as hard as any male prospect. Made me prove myself over and over. Did you? Harlow's voice was small. Did you prove yourself? I rode 50,000 miles that year. Fixed more bikes than anyone else. Showed up for every run, every event, every meeting. Never complained, never asked for special treatment. And at the end of the year, when they voted on whether to give me full colors, it was unanimous. Even the men who'd been against me at the start voted yes, because I'd earned it. Beth sat on the arm of the couch. I wore those colors for 10 years. Then I met this big idiot. She jerked her thumb at Bear and moved to Arizona. Iron Riders doesn't have a chapter here, so I left my colors with my home chapter when I came south. But I never stopped being a rider, never stopped being part of that world. And Steel Brotherhood knows my history. They know what I've done, what I've proven. She looked at the assembled brothers. So when these men say a girl can't prospect, can't earn patches, can't belong, they're not just disrespecting Iron's wishes. They're disrespecting every woman who's ever thrown a leg over a bike and proven them wrong. Raven nodded slowly. Beth's right. We've been operating on assumptions, on tradition that doesn't serve us anymore. Iron saw that. He saw his daughter had the same heart, the same strength as any son, and he fought for her right to choose. We're just finishing the fight he started. One of the brothers who'd been quiet spoke up. Younger guy, steel patch. My sister rides, sport bike. She's faster than me, better in corners. I've never understood why she couldn't prospect if she wanted to. She's tougher than half the men I know. Another brother, my daughter's in the army, deployed to Iraq twice. You telling me she's not tough enough to earn patches? The conversation shifted. The men who'd been uncertain started talking, sharing stories of daughters, sisters, wives who rode, who worked on bikes, who lived by the same code of loyalty and honor and freedom that Steel Brotherhood claimed to value. Harlow listened in a daze. These men were arguing for her, fighting for her right to choose, because her father had believed in her enough to start this fight before he died. Beth came over and knelt in front of Harlow. That vest your dad made for you, it's not just leather and patches. It's permission. It's him telling you that you get to decide who you become. Not society, not tradition, not men who are scared of change. You, just you. She touched the Iron's legacy patch over Harlow's heart. But legacy is a heavy thing to carry. It means people will expect you to be like him, to live up to his memory. And that's a lot of pressure for a kid. Harlow found her voice. I want to be like him. I want to be strong and brave and someone who helps people. I want to ride motorcycles and fix engines and be free like he was. Then you will be, Beth said simply. But you'll do it your own way, as yourself, not as Iron's copy. You understand? Harlow nodded. She understood. The vest was permission, not a prison, a path, not a destination. While the men continued talking, a different kind of gathering was happening in the back room. Harlow could hear women's voices, quiet conversation, the clink of coffee mugs. Nora had disappeared at some point during the debate. Now Beth stood and held out her hand to Harlow. Come on, let's leave the men to their arguing. Your mom needs you. Harlow followed Beth through a doorway into a kitchen. Basic, utilitarian, a table with mismatched chairs, old appliances, but warm, lived in. 5 women sat around the table with Nora. Leather jackets hung on chairbacks, coffee cups steamed. These were the old ladies. The wives and girlfriends of Steel Brotherhood members, the women who supported the club from the shadows. Nora's eyes were red. She'd been crying, but something in her face looked different, lighter, like a weight had lifted. One of the women, maybe 60, with gray-streaked red hair, stood and smiled at Harlow. "This must be Iron's girl. I'm Grace, Hawk's wife. Your dad was a good man, honey. I'm sorry for your loss." Another woman. "I'm Claire, Wrench's girlfriend. Your dad fixed my car once when I was stranded. Wouldn't take a dime. Just said family helps family." They went around the table. Introductions, condolences, stories about Knox that were different from the men's stories. Softer, more personal. How he always remembered birthdays. How he helped Claire move apartments. How he made Grace laugh at parties. How he was respectful in a way that not all the brothers were. Nora spoke quietly. "They told me about a fund for families of fallen members. They want to help with rent, with bills." "We take care of our own," Beth said. "That's not charity. That's what family does." "I don't know how to accept it," Nora admitted. "I've been so independent, so determined to handle everything myself. Asking for help feels like failing." Grace leaned forward. "Honey, I lost my first husband in a club accident. 20 years ago, I had 2 kids and no savings, and I was drowning. Steel Brotherhood's family fund paid my rent for 6 months while I got on my feet, paid for my kids' school supplies, made sure we ate. I'm not ashamed of that. I needed help, and family gave it. That's not failure. That's survival." Claire nodded. "My brother died in Afghanistan, left behind a wife and baby. The veterans organizations helped, sure, but it was his motorcycle club that showed up every day. That fixed things that broke, that mowed the lawn, that changed the oil in her car. That's what family does." Nora wiped her eyes. "Knox never told me much about the club. I always thought it was just men playing at being outlaws, drinking and rioting and acting tough. I didn't know it was this community, this support system." "Most people don't," Beth said. "They see the leather and the tattoos and the bikes and they make assumptions. But underneath all that is something real. Brotherhood, loyalty, a code that says you show up for your people no matter what." Harlow sat quietly absorbing all of it. These women were as much a part of Steel Brotherhood as the men, just in different ways. They supported, they organized, they created the foundation that allowed the men to ride. Beth turned to Harlow. "Your dad wanted you to have a choice. That's what that vest means. But choice requires information. So let me tell you what choosing this life means. It means belonging to something bigger than yourself. It means loyalty to people who become family. It means living by a code of honor even when it's hard. It means freedom but also responsibility. It means being judged by your actions, not your words. And it means working hard to prove you deserve to be here." She paused. "But it also means never being alone. It means having brothers and sisters who will drop everything when you need them. It means having a community that remembers your father, that honors his memory, that makes sure his daughter knows he was loved." Harlow looked down at the vest she still wore, at the patches her father had sewn with his own hands, at the promise written in leather and thread. "I want to choose this," Harlow said. "Someday, when I'm old enough. I want to prospect. I want to earn real patches. I want to be Steel Brotherhood like Dad was." Beth smiled. "Then we'll teach you everything you need to know. When you're ready, no rush, no pressure, just possibility." The sound of raised voices came from the main room. Not angry now, excited. The brothers were coming to some kind of consensus. Bear appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk to you both. Something's come up." They filed back into the main room. The remaining 14 brothers looked serious. Raven had his phone in his hand. "Just got a call from a lawyer," Raven said. "Richard Davis. Says he's Nora's father. Says he's filing for emergency custody of Harlow. Says he's got evidence that this club is a dangerous influence and that Nora is an unfit mother for allowing contact." Nora went pale. "My father. He must have heard somehow that I brought Harlow here. He says he's going to court first thing Monday morning," Raven continued. Says he's going to prove this is an unsafe environment for a child. Bear's face went hard. He's trying to take Aaron's daughter away because we're honoring her father's wishes. Flint was already on his phone typing. We need documentation, everything Iron wanted for Harlow. Any letters, any conversations, any proof that this is what he wanted. Harlow remembered suddenly. The journal. Her father's journal still tucked in her backpack in her mother's car. Wait, she said. There's something. In my bag, Dad's journal. He wrote about me, about wanting me to have a choice about the club. She ran outside to the car, grabbed her backpack, and pulled out the small leather journal. She brought it back inside and handed it to Bear. Bear opened it carefully, found the entry about Harlow, read it out loud. She's got iron in her blood whether she knows it or not. Been thinking about the club rules. Why can't my daughter be in this club someday if she wants to? What part of our values says girls aren't worthy? He kept reading. The part about talking to Bear, about fighting to change the rules, about believing Harlow deserved the same choices sons got. When he finished, the room was silent. Then Bear went back to the storage room. He returned with another box. After Iron died, I went through his storage unit, had to clear it out before the rent ran out. Found this. Didn't know what to do with it, so I kept it here. He opened the box and pulled out a folder. Legal papers, notarized documents. He handed them to Raven. Raven's eyes widened as he read. Jesus, Iron had this drawn up by a lawyer a month before he died. It's a legal document stating his wishes for Harlow. Says he wants her to have access to Steel Brotherhood, to learn about motorcycles, to ride when she's old enough, to prospect if she chooses. He looked up. It's notarized, signed, legal. Flint took the document and photographed every page with his phone. This is our defense in the custody hearing. Iron's explicit wishes legally documented. No judge can ignore this. Bear's voice was rough with emotion. He knew. Somehow Iron knew he needed to put this in writing, like he was planning for the worst. Beth spoke quietly. Or he just loved his daughter enough to make sure she'd be protected no matter what happened to him. Nora was crying openly now. Knox never told me about any of this. The vest, the journal, the legal document. He was fighting for our daughter and I didn't even know. He was protecting you, Grace said, making sure that if anything happened, Harlow would have options, would have family, would have a future. Raven made a decision. We're going to that custody hearing, all of us, every brother who can make it. We're going to show the court that Steel Brotherhood is a legitimate family, that we're honorable men who honor our fallen brother's wishes, and that Harlow Brennan has every right to know her father's community. Bear looked at Harlow. Kid, this is going to get hard. Your grandfather is going to say bad things about us, about the club, about your dad's choices. You're going to have to stand in front of a judge and tell the truth about what you want, about who your dad was. Can you do that? Harlow thought about her father. About Knox Iron Brennan, who'd believed she was strong enough to break traditions, who'd fought for her right to choose, who'd loved her enough to plan for a future he'd never see. She thought about the vest she was wearing, the patches he'd sewn on, the legacy he'd left her. She thought about these 14 men who'd dropped everything to honor a fallen brother's daughter, who'd voted to change 40 years of tradition, who were now preparing to stand in court and defend her right to remember her father. I can do it, Harlow said. Her voice was steady, strong. Dad believed I was tough enough. I'm not going to prove him wrong. Bear pulled her into a hug. This massive biker with tears in his eyes holding an 8-year-old girl like she was made of steel instead of bone and skin. That's Iron's daughter, he said, stubborn and brave and too tough for her own good. The brothers started making plans. Who could take time off work for the hearing? Who had clean records that would look good in court? Who could testify about Knox's character? What lawyer they'd hire? What evidence they'd present? Harlow stood in the middle of the planning session wearing her father's vest, holding his journal, surrounded by his brothers. For the first time since the day he died, she felt like she had permission to be exactly who she was. To grieve, to remember, to be angry at the world for taking him, and to fight for the future he'd wanted for her. The sun was setting outside, golden Arizona light streaming through the clubhouse windows. dust motes drifting in the beams, the sound of men's voices planning strategy, the smell of coffee and worn leather. Harlow looked at the wall of photographs, at her father frozen in time, young, alive, happy. She made him a silent promise. I'll make you proud, Dad. I'll earn these patches the right way. I'll prove that you were right about me, that I'm strong enough, tough enough, worthy enough. I'll finish the fight you started. Bear's hand landed on her shoulder, gentle, protective. Come on, kid. Let's get you something to eat. You're Steel Brotherhood family now, and family takes care of each other. Harlow followed him into the kitchen. Nora was already there with the other women planning who would bring food to the custody hearing, who would sit with Nora during the testimony, how they'd support this mother and daughter through the battle ahead. Community, support, brotherhood that extended to sisters and daughters and mothers who'd lost the men they loved. This was what her father had fought for, not just patches and motorcycles and leather vests. Family, real family, the kind you choose, the kind that shows up when the world tries to knock you down. Harlow sat at the table surrounded by these people who'd been strangers hours ago and were now preparing to go to war for her. She ate the sandwich Beth made and listened to the adults' plan and felt something shift inside her chest. Hope, for the first time in 6 months. Her father was dead. That would never stop hurting. But his legacy was alive in this room, in these people, in the vest she wore, in the journal she carried, in the legal document he'd signed to protect her future. Knox Iron Brennan had believed his daughter could be the first girl to earn Steel Brotherhood patches. And Harlow was going to prove him right, even if it took 10 years. Even if she had to work twice as hard as any boy. Even if tradition fought her every step of the way. She was Iron's legacy, and she wouldn't let his fight die with him. The battle was just beginning. The courthouse smelled like floor polish and fear. Maricopa County Superior Court downtown Phoenix on a Monday morning when the temperature was already climbing toward 95 degrees. Harlow sat in the hallway outside Family Court Division 3, wearing a dress her mother had bought at Target the night before. Navy blue, conservative. The kind of outfit designed to make an 8-year-old look innocent and fragile. But underneath the dress, hidden where the judge couldn't see Harlow, wore her father's stolen patch tucked into the waistband of her tights. A secret talisman. Proof that Knox Iron Brennan's daughter was tougher than she looked. 14 Steel Brotherhood members lined the hallway in their court clothes. Jeans and button-down shirts. Boots polished. Beards trimmed. Tattoos mostly covered. They'd left their vests at the clubhouse. Dressed themselves in respectability like armor. But you could still tell what they were. The way they stood, the way they moved, the hard edges that couldn't be softened by clean clothes and fresh shaves. Men who lived outside society's rules trying to prove they deserved society's respect. Nora sat beside Harlow holding her daughter's hand so tight it hurt. She looked exhausted, terrified, ready to shatter. Bear sat on Harlow's other side, silent, his massive presence a wall between her and whatever was coming. The courtroom door opened. A bailiff called their names. The room was smaller than Harlow expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights. The judge's bench elevated like a throne. Judge Catherine Brenner presiding, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked tired, like she'd seen too many families torn apart in this room. Harlow's grandfather sat at the plaintiff's table with his lawyer, Richard Davis, retired Air Force colonel, 68 years old, silver hair cut military short, jaw set, eyes hard. He wore his dress uniform even though he'd been retired for 15 years, using his service as a weapon, proof of his character, his righteousness. He looked at Harlow as something that might have been love or might have been ownership. Hard to tell the difference. His lawyer stood, mid-40s, expensive suit, professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. Your Honor, we're here today because my client, Colonel Davis, is deeply concerned for the welfare of his granddaughter. 6 months ago, Harlow lost her father in a tragic accident. Her mother, in her grief, has made questionable decisions about who has access to this vulnerable child. He pulled out photographs, printed from the internet, images of motorcycle clubs, fights at rallies, police arrests, violence. Steel Brotherhood Motorcycle Club has a documented history of criminal activity, drug trafficking, assault, weapons charges, and Mrs. Brennan brought her 8-year-old daughter to their clubhouse, allowed her to be surrounded by convicted felons, allowed her to be influenced by men who live outside the law. Nora's lawyer stood, younger, public defender overworked and underpaid. But she had fire in her eyes. Your Honor, those photographs are not of Steel Brotherhood, Arizona. They're from different clubs in different states. This is a deliberate attempt to paint all motorcycle clubs with the same brush. The judge held up her hand. I'll determine what's relevant. Colonel Davis, you have the floor. Present your case. Richard Davis took the stand. He testified about Nora's instability, her financial struggles, her inability to cope with widowhood, her decision to expose Harlow to dangerous men. My granddaughter needs stability, Richard said. His voice carried the command of 40 years in the military. She needs a proper home with proper role models. My wife and I can provide that. We have the financial means, the emotional stability, the moral foundation that a child requires. And what about the child's father's wishes? The judge asked. Were you close with Knox Brennan? Richard's face hardened. Knox was a good man who made poor choices. He got involved with motorcycle clubs, with men who rejected authority and structure. It led to his death. And now those same men are trying to claim his daughter. I won't allow it. Nora's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Colonel Davis, did you know that Knox Brennan left a legal document stating his wishes for his daughter? I know he was confused about what was best for her. Confused, he hired a lawyer, had documents notarized, explicitly stated that he wanted Harlow to have access to Steel Brotherhood, to learn about motorcycles, to have the choice to prospect when she was old enough. That doesn't sound confused. That sounds deliberate. It sounds like a man who couldn't let go of his outlaw fantasy even when he had a daughter to think about. The lawyer pulled out Knox's journal. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence this journal written by Knox Brennan, specifically this entry written 2 months before his death. She read it out loud, every word. Knox's belief in his daughter, his fight for her right to choose, his conviction that tradition wasn't the same as truth. Richard's face went red. That's exactly my point. He wanted to drag his daughter into a lifestyle that killed him. I'm trying to save her from that. By taking her away from her mother. By providing stability that her mother can't. The judge made notes. Inscrutable. Professional. I'd like to hear from the Steel Brotherhood members. Are any of you here? All 14 stood. The judge's eyebrows rose. All of you took time off work to be here. Bear stepped forward. Yes, ma'am. We're here to honor our fallen brother's wishes and to make sure his daughter knows her father's community. Mr. Johnson, they call me Bear. I'm vice president of Steel Brotherhood Arizona chapter. Knox Brennan was my best friend for 12 years. Tell me about him. Bear's voice was steady, respectful, but underneath it, emotion ran deep. Iron was the best man I knew, loyal, honest, hard worker. He never drank and rode, never put anyone at risk. He was a mechanic by trade, owned his own shop, paid his taxes, voted, volunteered at veterans events. And the club, what does Steel Brotherhood do? We ride, we work on bikes, we support each other through hard times. We raise money for veteran charities. We show up at military funerals to block protesters. We're not outlaws. We're men who love motorcycles and brotherhood. Any criminal records among your members? Bear didn't flinch. Some of us have past mistakes. I did 3 years in prison 25 years ago for assault, paid my debt, been clean ever since. But we don't hide our history, we own it, and we try to be better men. The judge looked at the other brothers. Anyone else want to speak? Flint stepped forward. Your Honor, I'm Flint Mathis, road captain. I met Harlow at a gas station 2 days ago. She approached me because she saw my vest. She was carrying her father's patch. She told me nobody would let her talk about him. Nobody would let her grieve. She was drowning in silence. His voice roughened. I rode with her father. I was at his funeral. And I'm ashamed that we didn't find his family sooner. But we're trying to fix that now. We're trying to honor Iron's wishes. And we're trying to give his daughter what he wanted her to have. choice, community, family. The judge turned to Harlow. Young lady, I'd like to hear from you. Can you come up here? Harlow's legs felt like water, but she stood, walked to the witness chair. The bailiff had to adjust the microphone down to her height. Judge Brenner's voice was gentler now. Harlow, I know this is scary, but I need to understand what you want. Do you want to live with your grandparents? No, ma'am. Why not? Because they want me to forget my dad. Grandpa says dad made bad choices, that the club was a mistake. But my dad wasn't a mistake. He was the best person I ever knew. And his club brothers are the only people who let me remember him. What about your mother? Do you feel safe with her? Yes, ma'am, mom's sad, but she's trying, and now she has help. The club has a family fund. They're helping with rent and bills, and the other women, the wives and girlfriends, they're teaching mom that it's okay to grieve, that we don't have to do it alone. And the club itself, do you feel safe at the clubhouse? Harlow thought about how to explain it, how to make this judge understand. Everyone thinks bikers are scary because of the leather and tattoos and big motorcycles. But Uncle Bear cries when he talks about my dad. Uncle Flint makes sure I have water and snacks. Uncle Wrench is teaching me about engines. They're not scary. They're just men who miss their brother. And I'm part of that now. I'm Steel Brotherhood family. What does that mean to you? It means I'm not alone. It means I get to talk about dad without making people sad. It means when I'm old enough, I can learn to ride. I can learn to fix bikes. I can choose to prospect if I want to. Harlow looked at her grandfather. Grandpa says girls can't do that. That tradition doesn't allow it. But my dad fought to change tradition. He believed I was strong enough, and I'm not going to prove him wrong. Judge Brenner studied Harlow for a long moment. You're 8 years old, very articulate, very brave, but you're also very young to be making decisions about your future. I'm not making decisions, ma'am. I'm just asking for the right to make them when I'm older, like Dad wanted. The judge made more notes. I'm going to take a 15-minute recess. When we return, I'll give my ruling. Those 15 minutes felt like hours. Harlow sat in the hallway with her mother and the brothers. Nobody spoke. The tension was suffocating. Finally, the bailiff called them back. Judge Brenner looked at Richard Davis. Colonel, I respect your service to this country. I respect your concern for your granddaughter. But I've reviewed the evidence. Knox Brennan's legal document is clear. He wanted his daughter to have access to Steel Brotherhood, to learn about motorcycles, to have the choice to be part of that community. She turned to the assembled brothers. I've also run background checks on every member present. Most of you have clean records. Those who don't have done your time and shown rehabilitation. I see no evidence that Steel Brotherhood Arizona chapter poses a danger to this child. Richard started to protest, but the judge cut him off. The petition for emergency custody is denied. Harlow Brennan will remain with her mother. Colonel Davis, you are granted supervised visitation every other weekend. But you may not interfere with Harlow's relationship with Steel Brotherhood. You may not forbid her from seeing these men. And you may not undermine her father's explicit wishes for her future. The gavel came down, final, binding. Richard Davis stood face red with rage, but he couldn't argue with the judge's order. He just stared at Harlow like she'd betrayed him. Then he turned and walked out. Nora collapsed in her chair, sobbing with relief. The brothers erupted in quiet celebration. Bear pulled Harlow into his arms and lifted her off the ground. You did it, kid. You stood up for yourself. Your dad would be so damn proud. But as they filed out of the courthouse, Bear's phone rang. He stepped aside to take the call. When he came back, his face was grim. We've got a problem. Back at the clubhouse, the brothers gathered around Bear's phone. A news article. Wade Dalton, the drunk driver who'd killed Knox Brennan, was being released from prison. Early parole. Good behavior. He'd served less than 2 years of his 5-year sentence. Son of a bitch, Flint breathed. Bear's hands were shaking. There's more. The lawyer I hired to look into the accident found something. 3 months before he hit Iron, Dalton was involved in a road rage incident with a biker. Charges were dropped. But the description matches Knox. Same bike, same route, same time of day. Silence. Raven spoke carefully. You're saying Dalton might have targeted Iron deliberately. I'm saying the police never investigated that possibility. They called it drunk driving vehicular manslaughter, closed the case. But what if it wasn't random? What if Dalton was waiting for him? Harlow felt something cold settle in her chest. Someone murdered my dad. Bear knelt beside her. We don't know that for sure, but we're going to find out. And whatever the truth is, Dalton's not getting away with this. What can we do? Wrench asked. He's already been sentenced, already served time. We can make sure he knows Iron had brothers watching him, Bear said. His voice was hard, dangerous. We can make sure he understands that if he ever comes near this family again, there will be consequences. Flint put a hand on Bear's shoulder. Brother, no. We don't do vigilante justice. That's not who we are. Then what? We just let him walk free while Iron's daughter grows up without her father. We let the system work. We push for a full investigation. We get the truth. And if Dalton murdered Iron, we make sure everyone knows it. But we do it the right way. Bear's jaw clenched, but he nodded. The rage was still there, but controlled now, channeled. Harlow touched his arm. Uncle Bear, my dad wouldn't want you to go to prison for him. He'd want you here. For me. Something in Bear's face broke. He pulled Harlow close. You're right. Iron would kick my ass if I got locked up over him. He'd want me here teaching you how to ride, how to wrench, how to live by the code. Then that's what we do, Harlow said. Her voice was stronger than she felt. We honor Dad by living, by being the family he wanted us to be, not by getting revenge. Beth appeared in the doorway. The girl's right. Knox fought for her future. Don't throw that away chasing ghosts. The brothers stood down. The violence that had been building in the room dissipated, not gone, but contained. Raven made the decision. We attend Dalton's parole hearing, all of us. We make our presence known. We make sure the parole board understands the impact of his crime. But we don't touch him. We don't threaten. We just stand witness. Agreed. Agreed, the brothers said in unison. 3 days later, they did exactly that. 18 Steel Brotherhood members in their full colors standing in the back of the parole hearing room. Silent, imposing. A reminder that Wade Dalton hadn't just killed one man. He'd torn apart a family, devastated a community. The parole board saw them. Wade Dalton saw them. His hands shook as he gave a statement about rehabilitation and remorse. When it was over, Dalton was released as scheduled. But as he walked past the line of bikers, Bear stepped forward. You took our brother, Bear said quietly. You took Harlow's father. We're going to be watching you, not threatening, just watching. Every move you make, every decision. We'll be there, reminding you that Knox Iron Brennan's family doesn't forget. Dalton's face went pale. He hurried past without responding. Bear turned to Harlow. He knows now. He knows Iron had brothers who remember. It wasn't justice, not really, but it was something. And years later, Harlow would learn that Wade Dalton died in a single-vehicle accident 2 years after his release, driving drunk again. The investigation never found evidence of foul play. Sometimes karma didn't need help. 1 year after Knox Brennan's death, Steel Brotherhood organized a memorial ride. 86 bikers from 5 chapters across Arizona. They gathered at dawn outside the Phoenix clubhouse, engines rumbling, chrome gleaming, leather and denim, and the Brotherhood of the Road. Harlow stood beside Bear's Road King, now 9 years old, wearing the vest her father had made. It fit better now. She'd grown. Not enough to fill it completely, but enough that it didn't drown her anymore. Nora stood nearby wearing a leather jacket Beth had given her. She'd learned to ride over the past year. Not on a big cruiser, just a small Honda Shadow 750. But she rode. She'd reclaimed a piece of the world Knox had loved. The route was planned carefully. 200 miles, north on I-17 toward Flagstaff, stopping at places that mattered. The diner where Knox had proposed to Nora. The bike shop where he'd worked his first mechanic job. The overlook where he'd taken baby Harlow when she was 6 months old. And finally, the crash site on Route 17, where Wade Dalton had crossed the center line, where Knox Brennan had died doing what he loved. They rode in formation, tight, disciplined. A river of chrome and leather flowing north through the desert. Harlow sat behind, bare arms wrapped around his waist, feeling the power of the engine beneath her, the wind in her face, the sun on her back. This was what her father had loved. This freedom, this brotherhood, this connection to the road and the machine, and the men who rode beside you. At each stop, brothers told stories, remembered moments, kept Knox's memory alive through words and laughter and occasional tears. At the diner, the owner remembered Knox, brought out a photo of him and Nora from 20 years ago. Young, in love, planning a future they'd never fully get to live. At the bike shop, Knox's old boss showed Harlow her father's tool chest. Still there, still organized the way he'd left it. Best mechanic I ever hired, the man said. Could diagnose problems by sound, had magic hands. At the overlook, they stood in silence and looked out over the valley. Red rocks and blue sky and endless horizon. The landscape Knox had loved. And then they rode to the crash site. Steel Brotherhood had erected a memorial stone the week after Knox died. Simple, dignified, his name, his dates, his road name. Forever our brother. 86 motorcycles parked along the shoulder. 86 bikers dismounted. They formed a circle around the memorial. Silent, respectful. A tribe honoring their fallen. Hawk read a poem, something about roads that go on forever and brothers who ride eternal. The words washed over Harlow like a prayer. Then came the moment Harlow had been preparing for all week. Bear touched her shoulder. You ready? Harlow nodded. She'd written a speech, memorized it, practiced it in front of the bathroom mirror until the words felt right. She stepped forward. 86 bikers watched her. This small girl in a leather vest standing at her father's memorial stone. Knox's daughter, Iron's legacy. When Harlow spoke, her voice carried across the desert wind. My name is Harlow Brennan. My dad was Knox Iron Brennan, Steel Brotherhood, Arizona chapter. He died 1 year ago today on this road. A drunk driver crossed the center line and killed him instantly. He was 32 years old. He left behind my mom and me, and 86 brothers who loved him. She paused, swallowed, kept going. For a long time after Dad died, I thought I had to forget him. Mom was so sad she couldn't talk about him. My grandparents said I needed to move on. My friends at school didn't know what to say. It felt like everyone wanted to pretend Dad never existed. Like if we stopped talking about him, the pain would go away. But the pain didn't go away. It just got heavier because I was carrying it alone. Then I met Uncle Flint at a gas station. I showed him Dad's patch. And Uncle Flint did something nobody else had done. He told me I didn't have to move on. He told me I could remember. He called Dad's brothers, and they came. All of them. In 30 minutes, they dropped everything because Iron's daughter needed them. Harlow looked at the assembled bikers, at Bear with tears already streaming into his beard, at Flint standing tall and steady, at Raven and Wrench and Hawk and all the others who'd become her family. This year, you've taught me what brotherhood really means. It means showing up when someone needs you. It means honoring your fallen. It means keeping promises even when the person who made you promise is gone. It means family isn't just blood. It's who you choose, who chooses you back. Dad chose Steel Brotherhood, and Steel Brotherhood chose me. You've told me stories about him. You've taught me about bikes. You've made sure I know he was loved. You've given me a community, a family, a future. Her voice wavered, but she pushed through. Dad's not really gone as long as we keep his memory alive. As long as we live the way he taught us to live. With honor, with loyalty, with love for the people who matter. And you all matter. Every single one of you. Because you're keeping my dad alive by remembering him. By honoring his wishes for me. By being the brothers he trusted to take care of his daughter. Harlow reached into her pocket and pulled out the original patch. The one she'd stolen from her father's vest a year ago. Worn now, frayed, soft from constant handling. I've carried this patch every day for a year. It's been my connection to Dad. My reminder that he existed, that he loved me, that he believed I was strong enough to choose my own path. She knelt and placed the patch on the memorial stone. But I don't need to carry it anymore, because Dad's not in this patch. He's in all of you, in the stories you tell, in the code you live by, In the brotherhood that doesn't end with death. She stood, faced the bikers. Thank you for remembering him. Thank you for not letting me forget. Thank you for being the family Dad wanted me to have. I love you all. And I know Dad does too. Silence. Complete. Profound. Then Bear stepped forward. He pulled Harlow into his arms and held her while he cried. This massive biker openly weeping for his fallen brother and the daughter who'd just proven herself worthy of the legacy. One by one, the other brothers came forward, touching the memorial stone, leaving small tokens, challenge coins, patches, rally pins, creating a shrine to a man who'd lived with honor and died too soon. Then Raven gave a signal. 86 bikers returned to their motorcycles, started their engines. The sound was like thunder, like a heartbeat, like the roar of dragons waking. They revved in unison, once, twice, 3 times. A final salute to Knox Iron Brennan. The sound echoed across the desert, loud enough to wake the dead, loud enough to reach wherever Knox was now, loud enough to say, "We remember, brother, always." Harlow stood at the memorial with her hand on the stone and felt the vibration of 86 engines in her bones. This was her father's world. This power, this brotherhood, this fierce, loyal, unbreakable family. And someday, when she was old enough, she'd earn her place in it. Not because she was Knox's daughter, because she'd proven herself worthy. 9 years passed like water through fingers. Harlow grew. 13, 16, 18, changed from a small girl into a young woman who looked disturbingly like her father. Same stubborn chin, same intense eyes, same broad shoulders and strong hands built for mechanical work. She'd spent those 9 years learning. Uncle Wrench taught her to rebuild engines. Uncle Flint taught her to ride starting on dirt bikes in the desert and working up to street bikes. Uncle Bear taught her the code, the history, the meaning behind the patches and the traditions. She worked at Cole's mechanic shop after school, earned her own money, saved for her first bike, a used Harley Sportster that she restored herself every bolt and wire until it ran like new. She graduated high school with honors, got accepted to Arizona State University for mechanical engineering. Could have gone to college, could have chosen a normal life, but normal had never been what Knox Brennan wanted for his daughter. On a Saturday morning 3 weeks after her 18th birthday, Harlow rode her Sportster to the Steel Brotherhood clubhouse. She parked alongside the members' bikes, walked inside in her boots and jeans and the vest her father had made her 10 years ago. It fit perfectly now. Raven was behind the bar doing inventory. He looked up when Harlow walked in, saw something in her face. "Today's the day. Today's the day," Raven called the brothers. Within 20 minutes, 14 members had gathered. The same men who'd responded when Flint called about an 8-year-old girl at a gas station. Older now, grayer, but still here, still showing up. Bear walked in last. He was 63 now, officially retired from his VP position, but still the emotional heart of the chapter. He took one look at Harlow standing in the center of the clubhouse, wearing her father's vest, and his eyes filled. "You sure about this?" Bear asked. "Prospecting ain't easy, especially for you. You'll have to work twice as hard as any male prospect just to prove you deserve a shot." "I know, and there's no guarantee. Just because you're Iron's daughter doesn't mean you'll earn patches. You could prospect for a year, and we could still vote no." "I know that too." "Then why do it?" Harlow looked at the wall of photographs, at her father frozen in time at 25. "Because Dad fought for my right to choose. And I choose this. I choose Steel Brotherhood. I choose to honor his memory by finishing what he started. I choose to be the first woman to earn full colors in this chapter's history." She turned back to Bear. "So I'm asking officially, Steel Brotherhood MC Arizona chapter, I request permission to prospect." Raven stood, looked at the assembled brothers.